Hi there. Welcome back to Children's Wisconsin's ongoing live Q&A series. If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Dustin and I'm on the Children's Wisconsin communication team. Today I'm joined by Ashley Argall, a foster care recruitment specialist here at Children's Wisconsin, and Akilah Adams, a foster care parent. If you haven't already figured it out by now, we're talking about foster care today. Ashley and Akilah are here to answer questions regarding foster care, shedding some light on what potential foster care families can expect as part of that experience. We encourage you to leave your questions as a comment, and we'll answer one submitted live at the end of the broadcast. If you're not watching us live, no problem. Leave a comment anyways, and we'll reply directly to you. Ashley and Akilah, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to start by having you both introduce yourselves and give a little bit about your backgrounds. Ashley, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Dustin. I'm Ashley Argall. I'm one of the foster parent recruitment specialists at Children's Wisconsin. So we mostly just work to spread the word in the community about the need for foster families, and then we'll also help talk with any foster families who are interested, answer questions they might have, and help them through the application process.
And I'll go next. Thanks, Ashley. My name is Akilah Adams, and I am a 36-year-old professional, biological mother to my 10-year-old daughter. I'm a homeowner, a podcaster, and lover of all things self-care. I'm a born and raised Milwaukee girl with Southern flair, like I like to say it. Prior to COVID, my home was that home on the block. So you guys know what I'm talking about, like the house where all the neighborhood kids, their bikes are in my driveway. The kids are jumping on the trampoline, running in and out of the house, grabbing snacks, and or asking for the Wi-Fi password for their cell phone. So I appreciate you guys having me on today to share.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, both of you. Let's make sure we're all on the same page to start with. Ashley, can you highlight exactly what foster care means and some of the reasons a child might go into foster care?
Yeah, so just to give a very general overview, foster care is temporary care with the purpose of giving the biological family of children time to make any changes necessary for the child to be able to return home with their biological family. So the goal of foster care is reunification, and in about 60% of cases, children are able to return home. In about 40% of cases, then permanency will be reached for kids either through adoption or guardianship.
Okay. How exactly is foster care different from adoption? How do those two work in concert, if at all?
Yeah, so foster care, as I said, is temporary care, and it's working really in a team with the child's biological family and with any social workers at the agency. So it's a team of caregivers working together for the child's best interest and toward that goal of reunification. On the back end, support is being given to the biological family to make those changes needed for the child to return home. In the case then when a child isn't able to return home, that is when adoption through foster care can become a possibility. And a lot of times the foster family might be the first family approached to see if they are open to becoming the adoptive family for the child. So that is how adoption goes through our agency. Outside of our agency, there is another route toward adoption, and that is called private adoption. Our agency does not work with private adoption. There are quite a few other agencies in the Milwaukee area that do. So anyone who's interested in that can Google and find a lot of possibilities. But how that works is those children that come to private adoption agencies, the parental rights have already been terminated in their cases. So it is directly to adoption. And just to define adoption, that is when you become the legal parents of a child. So you become fully the family of the child permanently. And the one difference between private adoption and adoption through foster care is that the home study and adoption process at private adoption agencies, the costs for that are incurred by the adoptive family. It can get a little bit pricey, like $10,000 and upwards of that. with adoption through foster care, one benefit is that the costs for that process are incurred by the state. So the home study process is fully free of charge to the foster family. The adoption process, there's about a $50 fee, but that can be refundable as well. So, yeah.
Okay, so you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what specifically is Children's Wisconsin's role in the foster care process that we help facilitate, and how do we work in concert with the state regarding that?
Yes, so when children first come into care, that is done through the state, through the Child Protective Services. They'll do the assessment of safety in the home, what that looks like a little bit. Well, some of the top reasons that a child could come into care are neglect, abuse, or caretaker drug or alcohol abuse. So, and it's defined as well as the only adult in the home or the adults in the home are both in a place where the child is not able to be cared for. So if one adult is having struggles with that, but there's another adult in the home that's protecting the safety of the children, then the children should still stay in the home based on the CPS standards. But when CPS makes the determination that a child does have to come into care, that's when they would reach out to Children's, the agency, and then Children's placement team, they're called, starts making the calls to the pool of foster families that Children's has licensed. When they make that call, they'll tell the foster families about what they know about the child and what they know about the situation, and then the foster family has the opportunity to either accept the call or not accept the call at that time. We do always say that if it's a situation where anything about it isn't possible in your home, it is okay to say no to a call, even though it's a heartbreaking decision. It is okay because it lessens the chance that a child would have to move homes again later if something wasn't working right within the family.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, something I didn't realize until I was prepping for our discussion today was that there are different types of foster care programs. Can you talk a little bit about the different types of programs that we have at Children's?
Yes, just real briefly, we have 4 programs. So the first is general foster care, which is essentially what we've been talking about. It's a license for temporary care with the goal of reunification. Then there is adoption through foster care, which is a dual license for both foster care and public adoption. So it would be in the case that a child in your care becomes, their case does move toward adoption, then you are already licensed to become the adoptive resource for the child. The thing is about that to stress is that you are still a foster parent primarily. So when children first come into your care, you are still working as a foster parent, working with the biological family, working toward reunification. It is only when adoption becomes the path of the case that then you would become, you could be the adoptive parent if you choose to. For another program that we have is treatment foster care. And that is really treatment foster families. It's kind of like taking a deeper dive into foster care. Treatment foster families are licensed and work kind of professionally as part of the care team for children with higher level medical needs or behavioral needs, that type of thing. So it could be kids with a feeding tube or other type of needs at a different level. So, but the foster parents are it's kind of, like a deeper dive into being a foster parent. And then respite care is the last program, and that is short-term foster care, most often utilized by full-time foster parents who might be traveling or in need of care of a child for a short amount of time, usually a couple of days, sometimes maybe a week.
Okay, that's helpful. So shifting over to kind of the other side of the situation where we've been focusing a lot on the program and what it means for kids. Ashley, can you highlight a little bit about what expectations are for a foster parent? And then Akilah, would you mind sharing what made you decide to become a foster parent?
Yes, so from the agency standpoint, the expectations, then Akilah can bring it to life, I'm sure. So just the general requirements and expectations are you need to be at least 21 years old. You can be a renter or a homeowner. You can be single or married or partnered. And one requirement is just that your income monthly has to exceed your monthly expenses. Income can include SSI, it can include a variety of different things, but just that the money that you are bringing in exceeds your expenses each month. And then a big requirement of foster parents, as we've kind of touched on, is that openness to working with biological families as well, which Akilah is very good at, and I'm sure can speak on more.
Thank you. So I come from a long line of foster caregivers. So my parents started their own fostering journey when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And in fact, 2 of my sisters are adopted through fostering. And I consider many of my foster siblings that came through our home, whether they were there for a month or 5 years, some of them, they are still my siblings. So that bond that you create with a child, or even the bond that your children will create with that child, is long lasting, and it can be if it is fostered. So as a child, I knew I would become a foster mother as well, because it was just a norm in our home. So this was a natural transition for me because of my upbringing, for being a part of the process of caring for the children when they needed that safe place and some love outside of their home. So also another motivation for me is knowing that a large percentage of children in out-of-home care are minorities, yet foster caregivers of color, that percentage does not match. I felt a strong obligation to step in and to step up based off of that fact alone, because children of color need to see themselves in the world. So my desire is not only to be a foster parent to the children in my care that I may have in my home for short-term, long-term, or even respite. That's not just my only desire, but it is also to increase the number of foster parents of color. And then also on the other side is to equip transracial caregivers with the tools they need in order to care for Black children. It is different to care for a Black child, skin-wise, hair-wise, the way that you need to parent them. There is a difference. So that was all that I needed to be that motivation and that drive for me to open up my home and to also partner with other caregivers and with the biological family. As Ashley, you stated, that is one of our priorities. And I saw my mom and my dad do that really well. There were times when I was a child and the biological family members, the mom or the dad, would show up at my parents' door because they were afflicted in mental health or substance abuse. And my family was always open. There were times where we'd be at school and my mom and dad would say, okay, you know what, come in, I'll feed you. You can't see the kids right now because they're not here, but you clearly need something to eat. Let's call the caseworker. I'm going to tell them that you're here. I'm going to get you a good meal and I'm going to send you back on your way. And we're going to continue to grow together. One of my foster sisters' mom, they still come to my home. They still consider my mom their sister. They still consider us family. So that bond for the biological parent between the foster parent, it can be positive and it can be lifelong.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that personal connection and experience that you've had. Ashley, when a child is placed in foster care, how long does that placement typically last? Is that duration predetermined, or is it more of a constant reevaluation based on the biological parent's situation?
It isn't predetermined. When kids first come into care, we don't typically know. The average stay is about 12 to 18 months, but it depends on a lot of factors. A lot of times, with how the biological family is doing in meeting the requirements for the kids to be able to come back into the home. So 12 to 18 months is about the average stay that a person can expect. Akilah, I don't know if you have more like personal insight to share from a foster parent.
Sure. So from my experience being a foster sibling, there were children who were in our home for, a short amount of time. And even for me as a foster parent, there are times where there will be a family member that will eventually pass a background check, or they didn't know that the children were in out-of-home care. They were in foster care. So you may have a child for a short amount of time because it is best many times that they need to keep that familial connection. So an aunt or a cousin or a grandparent or an uncle will come forward and pass the requirements. And it is our duty as a foster parent to make that transition really effective and really, really sweet for everybody, because our goal at the end of the day is to share love and to share space with the children who need it most. And even if it's for a night, I've gotten calls for, hey, Akilah, we just need this for a night. We're trying to get a hold of somebody. It's 3:00 in the morning and nobody's picking up. Yeah. Bring them on. Let's do it. And then also there are times where I've had a case where they said, we're waiting for someone to pick up the phone and this is just going to be for the weekend, and it's not. And it is a long journey. It doesn't seem like it's going to end back with them being with their family. And of course, I will continue to foster that relationship when it is safe and appropriate, but you just don't know. So you have to have that heart to have the understanding that my bed may just be a bed for that child for the night, but then it also may be their room for a very, very long time.
So kind of going off of that sentiment, we've talked a lot about how the top priority with foster care is reunification with the biological parents, and how positive that relationship between the foster parents and the biological parents can be. Is there kind of like a minimum standard of that? Or obviously I'm gathering that it can kind of vary in terms of the engagement and level with that. But, what are the expectations for a foster parent in terms of maintaining that relationship with the biological parents? Either one of you.
You want to answer? I can go. I'll go. Yeah. So as a foster parent, the first expectation as far as the biological family is concerned is that you will make that child available to their biological parents. So there will be visits if that is a part of the case, if that is something that is there. So yes, the expectation is that you will foster that relationship by, of course, now there's virtual visits. There are some visits when appropriate that they are in person, and there are steps that the agency takes in order to ensure that the children are safe, that your home is safe, and that their biological parent is safe. I personally foster a relationship with as many people in the biological family as are willing. I currently have a strong relationship with my boys' grandparents. We speak twice a week. We, share pictures, we do video chats, and that's not a requirement from the agency, but that's going above and beyond and seeing that that child needs to know their family, and they need to know that people outside of their space right now care for them and that they love them and that they are there. So it is our responsibility and our duty to create that safe space for the child to feel free to talk to you about their biological parents, and then for you to make them available when the agency requires those visits. And we do not have to drive them. You don't have to rearrange your whole schedule. If there are, violin lessons for, another child, you don't have to stop what you're doing. You just have to make them available. And that's what I tell foster parents who are prospective foster parents is you just have to make them available, and you have to have that ear and that eye before and after they go. Spend a little extra time and care. If you want to drive them, if that's something that you want to do, is take them to the visit, that can be wonderful as well, because then you can help them wind down or wind up for that visit, but it is not a requirement. Ashley, do you want to add anything?
Yes, that was really good. Akilah's personal perspective on that is really good, because from the agency, there is the standard of maintaining the relationship with biological families, but really when families go above and beyond in the way that Akilah does, that is in the best interest of the kids, that whatever level you're able to take it with that relationship, because it lessens the kids feeling like they have to choose between two different homes. So, when they feel like all the adults in their lives are on a team for them. But yeah, some ideas of things that people will do. There's the app called Google Voice. That's something a lot of people use for texting and calls. And then another very simple, small thing is even keeping a notebook that just says, like, if the kids behave in school well that week, or reach a milestone if they're a younger child. You can make a note of it in the notebook, send it with the child to their visit, and it gives the bio family an opportunity to write a note back as well and just hear those updates. Yes, yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. So, we were just kind of talking a lot about the more emotional expectations of foster parents, and Akilah's great examples of, kind of going above and beyond the clinical minimum. Ashley, I was hoping you could touch briefly on some of the actual legal requirements to be a foster care parent, like training and licensing.
Oh, yes. Also, I just remembered what I was going to say on the last one. Is Akilah mentioned it, but children mostly do have weekly visits with their biological family, and like a minimum is that they happen, so they can take place at the children's office, and a social worker can provide that transportation. But going above and beyond could be meeting with the foster family somewhere, maybe at a park. And where you're present too, a social worker can still supervise the visits. Some foster families, though, who really have worked on that relationship will supervise visits, even will do transportation, and it can be on a visit-by-visit basis too. So just to give some insight onto how that looks. For legal requirements, yes, so it's about 36 hours of training in total. Only 6 hours of those training happen before you get licensed. The other 30 hours are kind of like a continuing education that happens within your first 2 years of being licensed. And the way that the process looks is, so first, if after, hearing Akilah talk and hearing more about the program, you're feeling like this is something you are interested in, you would reach out to our office, and I think we'll have contact information up
right on the screen here.
Perfect. And that will actually go to someone on the recruitment team, either myself or one of my colleagues, and we will just answer any questions you might still have and be able to then send you the application. Once you apply, it will take about 3 to 4 weeks to process your application, and then a licensing worker will reach out to you. And they're the ones who do the process of what's called the home study. So they will come out to your home. They'll bring, I won't lie, it's kind of a large stack of paperwork they'll bring on that first visit. And they'll do just a general walkthrough of your home and go through all of the paperwork with you. And then they'll schedule visits with you for every 2 weeks after that time to just go collecting any paperwork that you have gotten finished, and then do interview questions with you and with everyone who lives in the home. There will be some standards for your home that you'll have to get, things like a fire extinguisher and smoke detectors, but you do not need to have all of that at the time that you apply. That's what the licensing workers are there for. That's what the home study process is there for. They'll help you know what things you will still need to get during that process of the home study. The average length of the home study is about 2 to 4 months. And then at the end of those 2 to 4 months, when all of the pieces are finished, so it'll be the 6 hours of training, all of the paperwork, and then all of those interview questions, and the house being meeting the standards, that then they will come and give you your license. And from the day that you receive your license, you are on the list then to receive calls for placement at any time after that.
And I will say, the licensing process, I know that may seem really intense. Like, oh my gosh, it's a lot. It's going to happen over 2 to 4 months. For me personally, it was like talking to a friend. My licensing person, Cheryl, she was amazing. Like, she'd sit down. This was before COVID, of course. But we'd sit down in the house and she'd be like, okay, Akilah, tell me about your childhood. Tell me, about this thing. They really want to dig deep to see if there's anything that they need to do to support you through this journey, and what would make you a good fit to be a foster parent. So for me, it was like chatting with a girlfriend, and I had to do a stack of homework after she left that I needed to continue on. So that was an amazing process, and it really helped me gather things up, like my life story. When she said, okay, I'm putting your life story in a binder, Akilah, I was like, man, wow, I got some stuff to talk about then. Let me tell you about this. So that process is definitely an investment, but it's an investment into a child's future.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to reiterate, the information we have, I'm pointing to here, our website, childrenswi.org/fostercare, or that toll-free number. You can certainly call or reach out to the website to learn more about the program. Visiting that isn't committing you to anything whatsoever. So we encourage you, if you're interested, to ask questions and dive deeper, and we'll get you answers, be it through this live broadcast, in the comments here, or on the website, or calling that number. Our team is eager to help you explore this as a potential program for you to get involved in. So my next question here is for you, Akilah. I think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this myself, my understanding of foster care prior to prepping for this Q&A was really limited to what I've seen and been exposed to in pop culture, like TV shows, movies, books, and things like that. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on what you can share of some, kind of myths about foster care that are different than what people might read or see on the screen.
Definitely. So, like you said, there are some misconceptions that are out there floating. Some of the things that I've heard is that foster children run away, or that they're troublemakers. The older kids that are in foster care, they're going to spew hateful words to their caregiver. Some myths that Ashley has already busted up is that foster parents have to be married, or they can't date if they're single, or they have to be a homeowner, or somebody has to stay at home with the kids full time. I'm single. I own my own home. I'm divorced, and I'm definitely dating. So it's something that is not a requirement if you want to be a foster parent. And I do not stay at home with my kids all day. I'm working from home, but they go to preschool, they go to daycare. And also, like, another myth that I've heard is that you have to have birthed a child, or you have to have parenting experience in order to be a foster parent. That is not true. As long as you have the heart to serve these children and the love and the ability to do it, you can be a foster parent. One thing that I hear and that I have been asked is that you have to, in order to foster a child of color, you have to know how to do their hair. You have to know about their skin right away. That is also not true. I'm working with the agency now to put together a really comprehensive package for transracial parents to help them through this. I actually have gone into homes for foster parents to do their children's hair and teach them. I have a network of friends and hairdressers as well that can cater to that need. So you don't need to know everything about hair or skin. The agency and, of course, myself, we will definitely equip you with the tools that you need in order to succeed.
That's awesome. That's actually a really good kind of transition to, another myth that I feel like I've seen in the media is that once someone takes on a foster child, they're really kind of on their own in that program, but that's not true at all. Ashley, can you talk about the ongoing support that's provided for foster parents?
Yes. So as we kind of talked about as well, you are part of what we call a care team as a foster parent. So you have the child will have what's called a caseworker, which is basically like the child social worker, and then you will have your licensing worker, who's kind of like as a foster parent, your social worker. So when you have any questions, please reach out, utilize those two people who are on the case of each of the kids in your care. And even above and beyond that, in our agency, we have a person who's called the Community Resources Specialist. So she is really connected with a lot of other organizations in Milwaukee for any type of support. She's actually also in charge of what's called the Robin's Nest, which is a resource center basically of donations that foster parents can utilize to get clothes, toys. Sometimes there's car seats and other just necessities depending on what comes in. But if you reach out to either the child's case manager or your licensing worker, you can have access to there and get any necessities needed for the child. So that's a common thing that people will ask too, is like, oh my goodness, do I have to go buy a whole lot of clothes and toys before the child comes into care? And know with that, there is support. And there's also a Facebook page called Connecting Bridges. It is a private group on Facebook, but I think there's about 1,500 families on it from all over Wisconsin, but all foster or adoptive parents. And that can be a place to look for support from other families or start to build community with other foster families. And it's also a place where a lot of items are exchanged. So the whole gamut of items: car seats, cribs, clothes, toys, and families are very willing to help on that. We've seen families like in the middle of the night be like, I really need a crib, I just got placed with a baby, and other foster families will show up with a crib supporting. So there's, if you reach out and things, there are other foster families, there's supports within the agency, and there's other resources in the community that can definitely be connected with you. Akilah, I don't know if you have more personal perspective to share on that as well.
Yeah, so I have a team of people who, there's like maybe about 20 of us, and they're not foster parents, that are parents of young children, and they will come and drop off bags to my house of clothes and things. So my basement looks like a mini Robin's Nest. And over the Christmas break, I had racks built in the back of the basement so I can start putting things in bins. But yes, like Ashley said, Connecting Bridges is a strong place of community where you can just, find solidarity. Like, I have a child and they're crying all night. Does anybody know what to do? They come from a traumatic home, or, they have this background, or, I have a baby with a feeding tube and I was trained, but I'm having some difficulty. Or like Ashley said, I got a kid in the middle of the night. There have been so many people coming up to my porch. I'm just like, you know what, grab it. It's on the porch, because we are family. And if you bring it back, that's fine. If you don't, it's okay too. Make sure you pass it along to someone else. So when you become a foster parent, you're a part of our village. And that's something, this is like the strongest village that I feel is in the community, because our heart is in it and we're in there for the kids. So never feel that you're alone. If it's hair care, skin care, I need a break, we find respite for each other through Connecting Bridges. Like, hey, dude, I need a weekend to myself. And reach out to your village and you have that. So you're definitely not alone. You'll never, ever be alone as long as you're with us. Someone will be with you.
That's fantastic. So thank you both so much. We're now going to tackle some questions that we've had submitted in advance of this. And remember, even if you're not joining us live, we still encourage you to leave your questions in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them there. So to start with, some of these questions are things that we already addressed in this broadcast, but we'll kind of bring them up again just because they were things people asked. So first question is, how quickly do you need to be ready after you get licensed?
So as we touched on a little bit, once you get licensed, you are open to receive placements right away. But throughout that licensing process, you'll have a lot of time to prepare. And preparing is really a lot towards the level that makes you feel comfortable to receive kids into your home, which I'm sure Akilah will be able to talk more about as well. But the minimum is really just having that room for the child that's not a shared room with any adults, although foster children can share rooms with other kids in the home. But so that they have a bed in their bedroom is really like the main thing that you need beforehand. Any other toys or clothes that you get beforehand is really just whatever you feel comfortable with, because as we kind of said, once you get the child placed with you, we can help in supporting getting items like that.
Totally agree. I wouldn't go overboard and decorate or, really go all out. What I did when I first started was because of the ages that I said that I wanted or that I would be open to. I have a toddler bed and I had a crib. And it was very neutral. The colors, there were basic toys, basic books, but I did not go out and retrieve a lot of things because there may have been a call that I received for a 10-year-old that needed a home right away. And I could say, yes, you can come in. I have a twin bed in the basement. I can bring that up really quickly. So the bare minimum, I didn't go out and buy pacifiers and bottles or anything like that. Just make sure that I had a plan that if I got a call at a certain time that I could go and get the things that I needed to hold me over until I got to Robin's Nest or reached out to somebody on Connecting Bridges.
Great. The next question we have here is, what does a foster child typically have with them when they come to your home?
So that all varies, and I'm sure, Ashley, you can speak to this too. It varies on their situation. I've had babies come in with nothing. So my kiddos come with what they wore when they were picked up by CPS and delivered to my home. Or they may, if they're coming from a previous foster home, they may have a few things that they had that still fit. If it was a change of placement, or if they came from a grandparent's house or whatever, it's not uncommon that they will show up with nothing. My kiddos that I have, they came with something from the agency. It was a duffel bag with a couple of diapers for the baby and some pajamas and a blanket. And that was all that they came with. So it does vary, but that's when that community and that village comes in, where I could say, hey, I got a baby. This is the size. What do you got? And then you can get what you need.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Ashley?
I don't think so. That gave a really good overview of what it looks like.
So this next question is one that we kind of touched on much earlier in the broadcast here, but knowing that reunification is always the first priority, I think, Ashley, you talked about that there was a type of foster care that might position foster care parents to be better prepared to adopt should it move to that. Can you talk about that again a little bit?
Yeah, so if you're a family who knows, like at the time that you're applying, that adoption could be something that you're interested or open to, that's when we would recommend the adoption through foster care program, just because you'll get both licensed right away. As we said, it isn't a guarantee. It is being primarily a foster parent first, but you'll have both licenses in the case that it happens. But even with the general foster care program, you can still adopt through that. So if you were just licensed for general foster care and one of the kids in your care became eligible for adoption, and you had cared for that child, let's say for a year or more, and have that bond with them now, you could be the closest adult to the child at that time, having cared for them for that long. We can then license you at that time to become the adoptive family for the child.
Okay. Next question here. Are there opportunities to foster and or adopt older children and teenagers?
Yes, 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 and yes. If you are a family who is open to adopting and fostering older kids and teenagers, that's really one of the biggest areas of need for kids in our community. There's I think over 60% of kids in care are age 6 and older. So really that school age, and especially with our older kids and teenagers, families that are open to caring for those kids are really needed. There are group homes in Milwaukee that are usually where older kids end up staying, because there is that gap between the number of foster families that are open to taking older kids and the number of older kids in care. And truly, older kids are families that have fostered older kids really do share beautiful experiences with them. Like, yes, they're older, but you can have conversations with them then, you can see them develop in a more mature way. And they have their personalities kind of already that they're bringing into care with you, and you can build a relationship with them. Akilah, do you have any more personal insight on that?
Yeah, no, you covered it. Like you said, I think there is a great need for fostering and adopting older children, and just to be able to see someone go into adulthood and have your fingerprints on that too, to help them navigate, to learn how to, balance a checkbook. Do we still do that? I don't know.
How to use the app.
You just use the app. It'll all come out in the wash. But to help them get those life skills, cooking, cleaning, and then helping them navigate through the high school and college process, like to see an adult go into life as a productive human that's changing the world. Like, you have that ability to do it. If you have that desire to do that, I think you should definitely jump at the chance, because there are some really amazing kids. We had some kids that were older too that unfortunately we couldn't adopt, but in our family growing up, but still have an amazing connection with them because of what we were able to invest in them.
That's awesome. So kind of a good transition from that is to this question of, how does school work if you have a school-age child that you're taking in as a foster child? Do they go to the same school in the foster homes district, or do they go to their existing school where their biological parents are? How does that work?
Children are required to stay in their school of origin when coming into foster care. So that is, if your age range is open to kids who are school age, that is a good thing to make sure when the placement call comes in, to know where their school is located, because you as the foster family will be responsible for their transportation to school as well. Kids who are in school through MPS, through Milwaukee Public Schools, there is a program called the Passport System, which is where they will set up transportation for that child, but it can sometimes take some time to set up. So it's good. It's good to know that you are able to provide that transportation in the meantime, at least.
Okay. On the same level, how does childcare work if you need it? Is that just kind of like it would for a biological child? Is there any considerations for getting a child into a child care facility quickly after placement?
So we tend to recommend to families that if your kids are younger than school aged and you work, to kind of start during that licensing process time, start calling around and finding some daycares that you like in your area. Daycares that are rated 4 stars or higher the daycare tuition is able to be fully refunded to you. So that's a thing to keep in mind too when you're looking for daycares. But yeah, just having a couple of daycares in mind so that when a child comes into care, if one is full, you can look at another one. That's typically kind of what we'll recommend. I don't know if Akilah has any personal experience to share as well.
Yeah, like you said, being ready. And also the state will assist you with the payment for the child care. So I immediately, but you have to wait till you get placement to sign up for that, for Wisconsin Shares. And then also letting the child care facility know that you are a foster parent generally will help. I've found that you can say like, hey, I'm going to get placement for my boys. I told them, hey, I have this age and this age. They just came Friday. Can I get everything signed up? and can we get going for Monday? And they understand that things happen quickly, and they will make room for them. They will hold a space, or whatever it is. They will make a way that normally wouldn't happen if it was just a child for private pay or whatnot. So, and they also are kind enough. You can talk to them to say, like, I know the state probably isn't giving me this much through Wisconsin Shares, and your rate is this. What can you do? I've been offered scholarships for my kids to cover the difference, so I don't even have to pay that difference to be reimbursed, because they understand they're foster kids and they don't want to have that additional financial responsibility on me. But again, it is case by case, but I would strongly suggest finding out the child care centers in your area, calling them, letting them know that you're going into foster care and what that process looks like for your specific situation.
That's great perspective, and the idea of kind of preparing for that in advance so that it's as easy as possible should that become necessary for you. Another great question here that I was wondering myself, what can you tell others or share on social media about the child in your care?
As a general rule, just confidentiality for the child and their family is really important. It's their lives, and it's something important that we should be respecting of all the kids and families who we're working with in foster care. So we tend to discourage sharing on social media, and even when sharing with friends and even people at school, just sharing what needs to be shared for the moment, but not just going around sharing, children's stories and things that is their personal story. Akilah,
Definitely. You don't want to make it seem like they're different, right? Like my licensing person told me, if you guys are taking pictures, feel free to throw that up there, but it should never be pinpointed out that this is my foster son, because he's coming from an abusive home, and you can't share things that are happening through the court process. You can't share their history. People will know if a child pops up in your, photos of Christmas time that child wasn't there last week or last Christmas. So it can be implied, but you can't say, like, this is our new foster baby, Robert, and I got him last week because X, Y, and Z. You want to make sure that you can sustain that trust level, even though they're little and they're not even on there. You want them to be able to trust you. And God forbid a family member goes through your social media because people's pages are public or what have you. You do not want it to be said that their caregiver is exploiting them, or they're using them as an accessory, as like a badge of honor, like I'm doing this good thing and these are my trophies. No, that is not what we're here for. We're here to create an environment of safety and love. So what that looks like is creating that confidentiality between that child and you and their case, and then also still doing those same things that you're going to do with your family. You would never tell them to move out of the way for a picture that you're going to share, but you're not going to be explicit and say, hey, here are my two new ones, like we're not going to do that.
Well, and I think that's a great point that you underlined about how, like, you shouldn't let that confidentiality prohibit you from including them in everything you would include your biological child in. It just doesn't need to go up on social media the same way you wouldn't share personal things that potential employers could find or something. So
exactly, because it can't get erased.
Yeah, yes. I think that's a great point. So next question here, we've got about 3 more. Do you have to accept a child of any varying emotional or behavioral need? Or I know we touched on this a little bit, but Ashley, can you just kind of underscore that again about how that works?
Yes, so if you're licensed for general foster care, it will be for a certain level of needs as based on an assessment of kids that when they first come into care. So you won't typically receive calls that would go more for treatment foster families for those kind of mid to higher level needs. There is a little bit of gray area between the two. Every human is unique, every person is unique, and every child is unique. So there can be a little bit of gray area, but in general, general foster families will receive calls for kids with a certain level of needs, and treatment foster families will receive calls for kids with a different level of needs. And when you get that phone call, that's a time to ask a lot of questions. Ask about the situation. Sometimes we don't know everything when a child first comes into care. So we'll tell whatever is known at that time. And then, based on that, like I said, you are able to say no to a call if it sounds like it's a need that your family might not be able to meet. You have some choice in that part.
Yeah, and declining a placement doesn't put you on a negative list or anything like that, because obviously the program is geared towards the best situation for the child. And if somebody is willing to admit that their situation isn't the best one for that kid, we certainly don't want to dock anyone any priority or points or anything like that. So it is not frowned upon to decline a placement in any way, shape, or form. Next question. Can a single person become a foster parent?
All the single ladies. Yes, you can become a foster parent being a single person. Like I said, you don't have to be a stay-at-home mom, or I feel like I give my babies a great perspective that they may not see in their normal life. Like if they come from a single mom family, their bio mom, and they come to me, they may see it in a different light, that I'm able to manage all of the things somewhat well throughout the time, but yet I do have a village. I do have a consistent babysitter. When I need to get away, I can do respite if need be. My life is not 24/7 kids. I have other obligations, and the agency understands that, just like they would if someone was married. We want to keep fresh relationships and different initiatives that you may be going towards. But yes, you can be single and try to mingle and be a foster parent.
So the last question that we have today is another pretty simple one. Do you have to have a high school diploma to become a foster parent?
Yes. Yes, you do. You should. There are minimum requirements. Like Ashley stated, you must be 21. You must have a high school diploma. There's other requirements that you must have. You must have income that covers your expenses. So there are requirements, and they'll go over all of those with you if you call the 411 or 414-453 HERO, or visit the website that is right there. There you go. Yep, that way. You can see all of those requirements, but yes, a high school diploma is required.
Okay. So that's all we had for audience questions submitted during the broadcast. Again, please leave them in the comments if you're watching us after we're live. But before I properly wrap up, I wanted to give you both an opportunity to share some closing words to our audience. Akilah, let's start with you.
So I think about what drove me to do this work and to do it above and beyond the requirements. And I would say to anybody, if you have a desire and the ability to care for the most vulnerable little humans in our community, I would strongly suggest that you go to the website or pick up the phone to get that ball rolling. Being a foster mom is a labor of love, and you have the ability to change the course of a child's life, no matter how long they stay in your home. That child, no matter the age, no matter the treatment level, will have your fingerprints on their life. So you have the ability to make this huge impact on the world. What if that child comes in there for a week and now sees that they have the ability to apply themselves to their schooling and to go out, and they want to go into politics or whatever it is? I always think about the end of this child's journey when they come in. When I take that phone call and I hear their story, or I hear that there's a need, my mind goes to 10 years down the line. What will I do to make my world better? And in my seat, it is to take the initiative to be a home and to share love and space with the child.
That's really good. From an agency perspective, just communicating that we would love to hear from you. Don't hesitate to reach out if this is something you're considering. Calling the agency just to get more information won't commit you to anything. It's just to learn more. And there's other foster parents that we can connect you with too that can help answer any other questions you might still have, or if you really just want to have a conversation, that is something that's possible too. But truly there is a need here in Milwaukee for foster families. There are about 2,000 kids in care right now, and the bigger the pool of foster families that are licensed, the better fits for kids that can be found in foster homes. So if it's something you're thinking about, make that first step and reach out to learn more.
Well, again, thank you both so much for your time and input today. I am extremely grateful, as I'm sure our audience is as well. We'll make sure to update the video description with a direct link and that phone number that we mentioned, as they've both mentioned. There's tons of information there. Reaching out to speak with someone on our team does not commit you to anything, and they are more than happy to directly answer any questions you have, as am I and Ashley and Akilah in the comments. So remember to visit childrenswi.org/fostercare if you have any further questions or want to learn more. And thank you again so much for watching.